course we just line it up with the holes. I did have troubles with the screwdriver trying to line the screw up with the hole. It was near impossible because you can't see what you're doing. So it's much easier to get it started by hand. Of course we screw it in. We don't screw it in too tight so we can line up the other holes. Now what I should have done, because I was having troubles getting the screw in and I forgot about this, I'd actually done this on my other fridges too, was just try the screw in the hole first, because they can have a little bit of plastic or shifts when you're moving the fridge around, or you've moved the top of the plastic top of the fridge a little bit, and you just got to make sure that you can get the screw in, and it makes it a lot easier to do it without the font on. And I found that the one I was having a problem with, screwed the screw in, pulled it out, and then everything was fine. So it's a good idea to check those holes before you even start. Now this font didn't come with any insulation, so I thought I'd insulate it while I was building it. Makes it a lot easier. I just found some exercise mat I had left over. That's just 1 centimeter thick exercise mat. Now I will mention, I've used this in other videos to insulate my Brew and things, and people always ask where they buy the silver sided stuff. I didn't purposely buy silver sided stuff, it just came that way, and I don't think it makes any difference really in this sort of situation, so don't bother if you don't have to search for that. 33 by 30 centimeters. So I've just put the insulation in like that. You can tape it up if you like. Okay, it's time to put it together. So I've got their supplied beer line here. The 4mm is what you use for the beer. My system at the moment I'm running has 4mm on it, and I have 2.5 meter lines. Now that's operating pretty well, and I'm at about 14 psi. I was at 12 psi, but once you add their manifold that has the one-way valves in them, that adds about 2 psi to the pressure you should use. But what I'm planning on doing is trying to go 3 meters, just so I've got that option that I can probably raise the gas up a little, pressure up a little bit more, get my summer beers nice and carved. And if the lines are too long, I can always shorten them. I'd never ever start short. It's a #1 tip for making a kegerator. I see a lot online in forums and Facebook groups, and people say, oh, I've got away with 1 meter or 1.5 meters. And I always suggest go long. You can always shorten them, but if you have to go in and lengthen them, that means a lot more work. So go longer. I suggest at least 4.5 meters. For 5mm ID if you're using that for beer, and for 4mm, yeah, I've been using 2.5 and it's been working well, but I just want to try and push the pressure up a little bit and start with longer than I may need, so I can have that option to shorten it if I want to. So I'm going to try, I don't know what they give you here. I think, is it pre-cut? I thought they were pre-cut. It doesn't look like it, but I'm going to see how long that is. I have got extra piping as I showed just before. I've got 12 meters, so I have got 4 versions of 3. So it's a single piece. I'm not sure how long it is, but we'll start cutting it up. I won't bore you with the cutting, but I'll let you know how much they supplied. So it appears I cut 2 3-meter pieces, and I've got a 1 meter piece left. That makes 7 meters. So it would be my suggestion to make sure you get a roll of beer line, 4mm. Because 7 meters, that's less than 2 meters per line, of course, and I don't think that's enough. Lucky, I'm prepared. When you buy extra line, make sure you buy the EVA barrier, not the old hard line stuff you might have laying around your house. The duo type fittings work really well with the EVA barrier, but not so well with that old hard line. I've shown this in other videos. It's a little guillotine for cutting your line. They're worth getting, they're only a couple of dollars. But the two most important things to get a good seal with your duo-tight fittings is the Eva barrier line and a nice straight cut. You can do it with a Stanley knife, no worries at all, but just make sure it's nice and straight, and this tool just comes in really handy. It's very quick. And the opposite end here helps you get the duo-tights off. That helps you push in the little clip you have to push in when you're taking them out, when you're taking the line out, and so it's handy. There's my 4 3-metre lines. Now, you don't have to go 3 metres like I am, but I'd say at least start at 2.5. I wouldn't go any shorter than 2.5 metres. But see, now that I've got these 3 metres, if I muck it up or something, I've got a little bit of leeway. I can cut bits off, I can shorten the lines. That's the way I'm going to do it. If you do hear fridge noises in this video, there's 3 fridges here running at the moment. The noise you may hear now, I don't know if the mic will be picking it up. That's the fan I have to replace in the Series 3. And the other noises is either the Series 4 or Series X. It's a bit hard to tell which one's going at the moment because they're all on still. I am getting rid of the Series 3, but not until everything's set up and make sure everything's working properly. So these are the shanks that attach to the font, and they're quick slip-on duo-tight fitting. They're already notched, so you don't have to notch the pipe. So it's simple, it's just pushing one on. Remember, you'll have 2 different fittings. The one with the hex is the one with the thread for screwing onto things like your quick disconnects. The other one you'll have will be a double-sided push-in. One's a bit bigger, and the littler one is the one you put on the end of your shank. Pull it out, push it in, pull it out. There, we're locked in. That's it. If anyone's ever struggled with the old way of putting these kegerators together, I did do a video years ago. I did one for the Series 3. I did another one when I put the Series 4 together, but it was that painful putting all the lines on things, and because I'd changed a 4mm line, that I never ever wanted to even edit the video and look at the footage again. And that's a true story. This, I'm hoping, is going to go smoothly and easy, just like that. Once I've done that, I'm going to just double check and clean up the end of this line. Nice straight clean cut. And that simply goes into the end. Push, make sure it's in. It goes in a little bit more usually, just like that, like a double push. And that should be nice and locked in there. So I'm going to do that another 3 times. I'll be back in a sec. While I'm doing this, I thought if you make a mistake, you've put the wrong line in, or you forgot to trim up the end and you want to take it out, I'll demonstrate how this thing works. Now, make sure you lock it because you don't want to cut yourself. It's very sharp, that blade. You simply wrap it around the line. You can push in that little end piece, hold on, and the line, if you don't let go of it, should just come out like that. And when you do that, you can see it all gets scuffed up. It's best to clean that off. I'll just chop the end off. And that's the benefit of these duo-tight fittings. With all these lines hanging around, if you accidentally, it's very easy to pick up the other end of the hose and put maybe another fitting that's not supposed to go on the end of the hose. And if you've used those other crimp clamps or anything, you'll know they're a bugger to get off. These are very easy. So I've completed all those. Now the other end of the line, you need one of the hex ones, the MFL fittings. And just do the same thing, make sure the end's cut straight and put them on. Now don't attach your quick disconnects yet because you won't get them down the hole of your font. So you can go that far, now it's time to install them into the font. Or you might find it easier, because these get screwed on to the quick disconnect, it might be easier to put that onto the quick disconnect, put this into the font first and then connect it. Either way, it'll work. It's easier for me on the video to do it while I'm standing up rather than sitting on the ground and trying to show you how to connect them. Again, if it's bent like that, I just clean that up. I'll just cut that off. Remember, they supply you with a tap wrench. Very handy. Mightn't be so bad in these big ones, but in the smaller ones, it's very hard to get a regular set of pliers or something down there, or a spanner to hold the nut in place. I installed the font last night, and since I'm actually using the fridge for storage at the moment for some beer, I stuck a towel in there to stop losing all the cold air out the top. I'm going to install the insulation first and see how I go doing it all up with the insulation in there. I probably won't have a problem. So before we feed this through, we have to take the nut off. And that little washer piece. So before we feed it through, make sure your nut's there. That holds, that will screw onto your tap eventually, and this little piece goes against your font. So simply put the fitting through. Always start with the bottom taps too. There's a little hint, because it's hard when you've got the top taps in, trying to screw the bottom taps in. Now, once you're fed through a little bit, you can put your nut, these things back on. Now you make sure your washer, the curved bit, is going to face the font, the inside of the font. It's a bit hard to see that, but it's curved on one side. That goes against the inside of the font. Oh, and I've got a knot. So I want to make sure the curved bit is facing down, and then your nut. Now you can feed it down into the fridge. So I can find the, get it through the hole. But make sure you keep a hold of you don't let those nuts fall down. And of course, for the video, I've got a knot in it. There we go. So keep feeding it down. Make sure you don't drop your nuts. Of course, you want to try and get it in there so this bit is pointing down. Of course. Can be a little bit fiddly. There we go. Push it through. The little plastic bit goes on first. Of course, it hasn't got much choice at the moment. And then you put the nut on. I haven't tightened that up yet, but you can see how it fits in there. Do these nice and tight. Don't do them over tight, but you don't want them to come loose and to move. It won't be so bad in this font, but in the skinnier fonts, you've heard me talk about one of my taps that kept coming loose, and it was one of the lower ones in the skinny font. It's really hard to get in there to tighten that up again. I don't think we'll have the problem with this one. I was having real troubles then to get it on, because the nut can get into a position where it's hard to get it on. So sometimes you just back it off a little bit and it'll be in the right position where you can get your spanner onto it. Now it's getting harder to get my hand down there. It's going to be a pain to get the line down. There we go. Yay! Now there's many different ways you could have fed the lines through. You could tape them all together and feed them through, then put the fittings on as a secondary thing. Whichever way you want to do it. It was easier for me for the video to put some of the fittings on in front of the camera before I started feeding things through so you could see it easier. But we're nearly done as far as the tap goes. So this is the really easy part. All taps go on the same, in the home brew world anyway, just about. And you can just put it in place there. Make sure you have the seal in there, there's a little black seal. Yeah, this simply screws on like that. There is a tool here. A little knob on there. And that just helps you tighten it up. Knob fits in a little hole. That's it. Now comes the handle. You can get all different sorts of handles, of course. Now this bolt here is actually to lock the handle. So you don't screw that down to the tap. If you go too tight, you might be able to open it. It doesn't seem like you can on this one. Sometimes you can. You can screw that down, screw them together, nice and tight. This one, top one here, is for the tap handle. This one here will adjust how loose your tap is. Now you can't have it real loose because you will probably leak. And it doesn't need to be extremely tight. You do it too tight, sometimes you can lock your taps up. I don't know if they do it on these inter taps, but I have done it on other taps. Doesn't seem to be too bad there anyway. I'll tighten that right up. While we're here, when you pour a beer, don't pour it from up here. You're supposed to do it from the base. I know you see a lot of people in pubs and things grab it from the top, but you should really grab it from the base, especially if you've got cheaper taps. Some can be plastic even, and if you keep grabbing it from the top, you just damage it. You get too much leverage on it when you don't know your own strength. So always try and tap it from the bottom.